The Canadian economy is collapsing and has a few major problems that the government will need to fix in order for us to remain as one of the top nations in the world. The Trudeau government has been screwing up the Canadian economy, and it might be worse off than people actually realize. And I'm going to be breaking down exactly where the Canadian economy is failing and leaving us behind in the dust, comparing us to other countries. If we were to compare ourselves to the US, we are getting absolutely destroyed on the innovation front. Always seem to be behind the times in terms of creating new business and creating a better economy here in Canada. Let's start off with the population comparison. So in Canada, we have 39 million people, where in the US, they have 340 million people. That is 8.3 times in terms of population difference that the US is bigger. So now let's compare the statistics on how our economy shapes to the US economy, and we'll see the difference if it comes out to around 8.3 times, making up for the difference in population. Canada currently does about $2.2 trillion in GDP, where in the US they do about $24.8 trillion in GDP annually. That is 11.2 times difference if we were comparing on how superior the US GDP is to the Canadian economy. But the golden question, why is the Canadian economy actually failing? I'm going to be breaking down right here on where we come short. And if you're enjoying my content on the economy here in Canada and want to stay up to date with what actually is going on and the trends, you're going to want to hit that subscribe button, because I'm going to be releasing a ton of new content in the future on how Canada is actually performing. Canada's next shortfall is the amount of gross national income that we produce each year. In Canada, we make around $682 billion, where in the US, they make about $9.78 trillion for their gross national income. And one of the main reasons on why Canada's gross national income is so low is because of the amount that we have to export in terms of all the goods that we manufacture and produce here in Canada, which does make up a good portion of our gross national income. Now let's break down where this gross national income comes from. In Canada, we export about $462 billion a year, meaning that 7/8 of everything that we produce here in Canada, we have to export and ship to another country. Where in the US, they only export about $1.56 trillion. And the reason being why there's such an efficient economy is that they consume 2/3 of everything that is produced and manufactured in the US. As breaking down what the Canadian economy does, it looks like we're getting left behind, and each year other countries are just progressing and progressing. And why is that? So when I crunched the numbers and I looked at it, I personally believe that the Canadian government lack of initiatives and spending in research and development in emerging sectors, and the very little spending that they put towards entrepreneurship is the main reason why we are getting left in the dust. Out of all the G7 countries, Canada is the second worst in the amount of spending that they put towards research and development each and every year. Where Justin Trudeau has been pumping billions of dollars into foreign aid, when we could have been using that money and capital in order to grow our economy here locally in Canada. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't support and help out other countries when they're in need or a natural disaster comes the way. 100% we need to step in and we need to help those people with some funding so they can get their feet on the ground again. My main point being here is we don't need to be putting billions of dollars towards this foreign aid when we can put a good portion of that money here on our own soil in Canada, put it towards research and development so we're not behind on these emerging sectors and be one of the last countries to the table where a new emerging technology has been developed. We can be on the forefront of it instead of behind. A good example of where Canada is missing the next wave of emerging sector is in the green energy space. You look at what the US, China, and other major countries are doing in terms of putting spending, initiatives, grants, in order to adopt the new green energy wave that's coming. You've seen massive government spending in order to support these businesses early on. If you're getting some good insights from this video, smash that subscribe button, because I love doing the research here and putting these videos together so everyone knows what's going on with the Canadian economy. I'm going to be putting out a lot more content like this in the future. But I shouldn't just absolutely bash Canada the whole entire video. There is one thing that the Canadian economy and one thing here in Canada that we do the best out of anywhere else in the world, and that is banking. Out of all the G7 countries, Canada is number one for 11 straight years on our banking sector, and that is one thing that we are absolutely the best at when it comes to economy and around the world. Our banks are the best that you'll see in the world. My main points that I want you to get out of this video is to see that the Canadian government needs to implement some more fiscal policy and start putting more spending towards entrepreneurship, towards research and development, so we can actually be a part of these emerging markets and not be trailing behind. And this is what's going to actually support the future of Canada and see us maintain our position as one of the world leaders when it comes to economy. And for all the Justin Trudeau haters, if you want to find out how he just nuked the Canadian real estate market, you're going to want to watch the video here next that's going to pop up on the screen.